feel it before you can explain it. A tightening in your spirit, a pressure that does not come from fear, but from proximity. This Friday is not loud, it is not dramatic, it does not announce itself with thunder. Yet everything in you knows that something has been approaching, inch by inch, day by day, decision by decision. You did not stumble into this moment. You were escorted here by unseen hands. Beloved chosen one, stop scrolling for a second and listen carefully. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. You have been living inside a countdown without realizing it. That strange sense of urgency that visits you at night. The way ordinary conversations suddenly feel hollow. The way distractions that once satisfied you now irritate you. Heaven has been compressing time around you. What feels like pressure is actually focused. What feels like heaviness is actually gravity pulling you toward assignment. This Friday is not just a date on a calendar, it is a hinge in the spirit. After it swings, things do not return to the way they were. You are not imagining the resistance. You are not weak for feeling tired. The closer you get to a divine intersection, the louder the static becomes. Doubt tries to speak louder. Old habits try to reassert authority. People who benefited from your confusion suddenly resurface. This is how you know you are close. Opposition does not rise for irrelevant people. Warfare does not surround empty destinies. If darkness is reacting, it is because light is about to be deployed through you. You were never meant to blend in at this stage. That is why isolation has followed you even in crowds. That is why you feel misunderstood even when you are explaining yourself clearly. You are outgrowing environments faster than they can adapt to you. God has been loosening your grip on what is familiar so your hands will be free to receive what is coming. And what is coming is bigger than you think. Bigger than your plans. Bigger than your fears. Bigger than the version of you that survived instead of ruled. This Friday is not about external confirmation first. It is about internal agreement. Heaven is waiting on your yes to activate what has already been prepared. Angels are not scrambling. Provision is not delayed. The only variable left is whether you will recognize the moment when it arrives dressed as normal. Many miss divine doors because they expect spectacle. But God often moves quietly, so only the attentive step through. You have been asking why things did not work out sooner. Why the door closed when you were almost there. Why the breakthrough seemed promised but postponed. Here is the truth: if it had happened earlier, it would have crushed you instead of crowned you. Timing is not denial, timing is mercy. You are stronger now. Quieter, but sharper. Less reactive, more discerning. Less desperate for approval, more anchored in truth. That is not accidental, that is preparation. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie though it tarry. Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. That word appointed matters. This is not random. This Friday is marked. It has an address in heaven. And the vision that has been silent is about to speak. Do not mistake waiting for wasting. Every silent season trained your ears. Every delay purified your motives. Every tear watered the ground you are about to stand on in authority. You were learning obedience without applause, faith without evidence, endurance without reassurance. These are not beginner lessons. These are the markings of those trusted with weight. God does not give heavy crowns to fragile minds. There is a decision embedded in this moment. You cannot carry the next season with the habits of the last one. You cannot enter new ground while negotiating with old compromises. Some conversations will have to end. Some comforts will have to be surrendered. Some versions of you must die so the appointed one can stand up. This is not punishment. This is pruning. And pruning always looks like loss before it looks like increase. Pay attention to what your spirit resists right now. That is often where the breakthrough is hiding. Obedience rarely feels convenient at first. It feels exposed. It feels risky. It feels like stepping out of the boat while logic is screaming to stay seated. But water only reveals who can walk when faith outweighs fear. You are not being asked to understand everything, only to trust the one who does. Chosen one, this message found you because heaven trusts you with it. Not everyone is allowed to sense what is about to happen. Some are protected by ignorance. Others are invited into responsibility. You are in the second group. This Friday will test whether you will move when God nudges, even if no one claps, even if no one agrees, even if no one understands. Destiny often looks lonely right before it looks glorious. Before you move on, if this resonates, take a moment to like this message, share it with someone who needs confirmation, and subscribe so you stay connected to what is unfolding. And at the end of this section, as a prophetic act of alignment, comment the number 77 not for visibility, but as a sign that you recognize the appointed time and you are ready to step into it. The pressure you have been feeling did not arrive by accident, and it did not come to break you. It came to reveal you. You kept asking yourself why everything seemed heavier lately, why simple things required more effort, why rest did not fully restore you the way it used to. What you were experiencing was not burnout, it was compression. Pressure always increases right before expansion. Nothing grows without resistance. Nothing is elevated without weight testing its foundation. You are in a season where God has been tightening what is loose and exposing what is misaligned. That inner discomfort you could not shake was not anxiety. It was discernment waking up. You were becoming aware that certain environments could no longer sustain who you are becoming. Conversations began to feel shallow. Entertainment felt empty. Even victories felt temporary. This is what happens when your spirit outgrows your surroundings. You start suffocating in places you once called home. The enemy loves to mislabel this season as failure. He whispers that you are behind, that others are passing you, that you missed your moment. But the truth is far more precise. You are being slowed down on purpose. Acceleration without structure destroys destinies. God would rather frustrate your pace than fracture your future. So he allowed resistance, not to punish you, but to force you to develop endurance, discernment, and depth. Think back to the moments you wanted to quit, the nights when silence felt louder than noise, the prayers that felt like they hit the ceiling and fell back unanswered. Those moments were not empty. They were formative. Something was being built in you that could not be rushed. You were learning how to stand without constant reassurance, how to trust without constant evidence, how to obey without immediate reward. These are the muscles of authority. Pressure also reveals what cannot go with you. Some attachments only survive in comfortable seasons. When pressure comes, they crack, people drift, support fades, familiar systems fail. This is not because you did something wrong. It is because the next level requires lighter baggage and stronger focus. God will not allow sentimental loyalty to sabotage prophetic assignment. What cannot survive pressure was never meant to accompany promotion. You may have noticed how temptation intensified alongside fatigue. Old habits knocking louder, old thoughts resurfacing with new aggression. This is strategic. The enemy knows timing. Even if he does not know outcomes, he senses that something is close, so he tries to exhaust you before you arrive. He wants you to trade endurance for relief, obedience for comfort, destiny for distraction. But what he does not realize is that pressure has already refined you. You are not as impulsive as you used to be. You pause now, you listen, you weigh consequences. That is growth. There is also a holy grief that accompanies this stage. You grieve versions of yourself you can no longer be. You grieve relationships that cannot follow. You grieve simplicity. This grief is not weakness. It is evidence that you love deeply. But it is also a sign that you are ready to release what belongs to yesterday. You cannot step into Friday carrying Thursday's burdens. The weight will slow you down. You were pressured because you were being positioned. Diamonds are not formed in open air. They are formed in darkness, under weight, over time. You did not see immediate results because the transformation was internal first. Heaven always works inside before it manifests outside. Character before calling, capacity before visibility, stability before scale. This order protects you from self-destruction when success finally finds you. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Notice the contrast: affliction versus glory, moment versus eternal, light versus weight. What you felt as unbearable was temporary. What it is producing is permanent. Glory always outweighs the pressure that births it. You are closer than you think. That is why distractions intensified. That is why emotions fluctuated. That is why sleep patterns shifted. Your spirit was adjusting to a new altitude. Higher ground requires different breathing. What once felt natural now feels forced because you are no longer designed for that level. The discomfort is confirmation, not condemnation. You are closer than you think, and that closeness has been rearranging your inner world. Your focus has sharpened while your tolerance for noise has decreased. What once entertained you now drains you. What once felt acceptable now feels heavy. This is not restlessness, it is refinement. Your spirit is shedding excess weight so you can move with precision when the moment arrives. Even your solitude has changed its texture. Silence now teaches instead of frightening you. Stillness exposes truth instead of boredom. You are learning how to hear without scrambling for answers. This is maturity unfolding quietly. When action is finally required, you will not rush blindly. You will move with clarity because this season trained you to recognize God's voice above all others. Understand this clearly: if God were not serious about what He placed inside you, He would have left you comfortable. Comfort is given to those not being prepared for battle. Ease is for spectators, not participants. You are being trained for visibility with integrity, influence with humility, authority with restraint. These qualities are forged, not gifted. So do not resent the pressure. Do not rush to escape it. Let it finish its work. Let it strip what is unnecessary. Let it sharpen what remains. When Friday arrives, you will not step into it fragile or confused. You will step into it steady, grounded, and aware. The pressure you survived will become the proof that you are ready. Something has already shifted, even if your eyes have not caught up yet. That is the nature of spiritual movement. It begins invisibly. Long before walls fall, the atmosphere changes. Long before fruit appears, roots stretch deeper. You are standing in that quiet middle where heaven has acted, but earth has not yet echoed the sound. This is where many lose confidence, because they were trained to believe only what they can see. but you are being retrained to see through believing. Do not wait to feel different before you act differently. Transformation rarely announces itself with emotion. More often, it whispers through subtle changes in desire. You start wanting less noise. You crave clarity instead of chaos. You notice impatience where tolerance once lived, and discernment where naivety once ruled. These are not random personality shifts. They are indicators that alignment has already begun. The invisible shift does not remove responsibility. It increases it. Once God moves behind the scenes, your role is to agree with that movement in the visible realm. Agreement is not passive. It is practiced. This is why faith without action eventually decays into frustration. You are not called to force outcomes, but you are called to cultivate readiness. Here is where practice becomes sacred. First, stop postponing belief until proof arrives. The order matters. You do not believe because you see because you believe. Each day, set aside a few intentional minutes for prayer, not rushed, not multitasked. Even 5 quiet minutes where you speak honestly and then listen attentively creates space for alignment. Prayer is not about persuading God, it is about positioning yourself to recognize what He is already doing. Second, begin to write. Not for performance, but not for perfection. Write what you notice changing. A reaction that softened, a thought that no longer dominates you, a desire that faded, a new hunger that surprised you. These small shifts are evidence of internal movement. When doubt later tries to tell you nothing is happening, you will have a record that says otherwise. Memory fades, but written testimony resists distortion. Third, observe your responses, not just your circumstances. The invisible shift shows itself most clearly in how you handle familiar pressure. You may still face the same people, the same challenges, the same delays, but you are not reacting the same way. You pause more. You speak less impulsively. You recover faster. That is growth. That is fruit forming underground. Understand this: heaven rarely announces transition with noise. It prefers confirmation through consistency. If you remain faithful in small disciplines, you will not need dramatic signs to reassure you. Confidence grows quietly when obedience becomes habitual. This is how God builds leaders who do not panic under pressure. There is also a warning embedded in this phase. When movement is invisible, temptation tries to reframe patience as stagnation. You may hear the thought, "Nothing is happening, so why keep going?" That voice is not neutral. It is an invitation to abandon alignment right before manifestation. Do not fall for it. The quiet does not mean absence. It means concentration. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 29, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." This is also a season to simplify. Complexity feeds confusion. Strip your days down to what matters. Fewer voices, fewer inputs, fewer emotional negotiations. The invisible shift thrives in uncluttered space when you reduce noise. Discernment sharpens. When you reduce speed, accuracy increases. That you're not falling behind by slowing down. You are locking into divine timing. Do not despise repetition right now. Repeated prayer, repeated discipline, repeated restraint. These are not signs that nothing new is happening. They are the grooves being carved so power can flow without resistance later. Anointing poured on unstable ground is wasted. God stabilizes before He amplifies. You may also notice that some people no longer recognize you. They sense the change but cannot name it. They feel distance where there is none. This is because alignment creates unfamiliarity to those who were attached to your previous version. Do not explain yourself excessively. Let consistency speak. Those meant to walk with you will adjust. Those who cannot were assigned to a different chapter. Now, here is a simple act of agreement. If this resonates, comment this short sentence: I trust the process. This is not for performance or approval. It is an act of verbal alignment. Words anchor decisions. When pressure returns, you will remember what you declared. The invisible shift does not ask you to predict outcomes. It asks you to steward posture. Stay teachable. Stay anchored. Stay honest. You are not required to know how everything unfolds, only to remain responsive when it does. When Friday arrives, it will not shock you. It will feel familiar, because your spirit recognized it long before your calendar did. Saying, I trust the process, is not passive optimism. It is an intentional surrender of control. You are declaring that you will not sabotage growth by rushing outcomes or demanding timelines. This sentence trains your spirit to cooperate with God's pace, keeping you steady when emotions fluctuate and circumstances lag behind promise. Each time you repeat that phrase, you reinforce spiritual posture over emotional reaction. You remind yourself that obedience continues even when clarity does not. Trust becomes a daily discipline, not a feeling. Over time, this declaration reshapes how you wait, how you decide, and how you move when direction finally becomes clear. You are learning to live from the inside out. That is the mark of maturity, and what begins invisibly always ends unmistakably. When Friday arrives, it will not ask for permission. It will not negotiate with your comfort. It will simply expose what has already been decided in the unseen. This is the moment where cycles break, not because you tried harder, but because time ran out on what was never meant to continue. What has been repeating in your life is about to lose its authority, and not gently. Patterns end loudly when they end finally. You have lived inside loops for years. Same lessons wearing different faces, same emotions triggered by new situations. Same internal arguments replaying themselves whenever you stood at the edge of growth. These cycles were tolerated until now because they were instructional. But instruction has a shelf life. When understanding arrives, repetition becomes rebellion. Friday marks the line where grace stops explaining and starts enforcing. This is why resistance has felt different lately, not stronger, more desperate. The things that once distracted you no longer satisfy, so they try to dominate. The voices that once persuaded now attempt to intimidate. This is the behavior of systems that know their time is ending. Darkness panics when exposure is near. It would rather exhaust you than confront the authority you are stepping into. Something must break for something else to breathe. Old agreements shatter so new covenants can stand. You cannot carry new oil in old containers without loss. That is why some structures in your life will collapse quickly once this shift activates. It may look sudden to others, but you know better. You felt the cracks forming long ago. This is not destruction, it is release. You may be surprised by how calm you are when it happens. That calm is not denial, it is readiness. Panic belongs to the unprepared. You have already mourned what is ending. You already wrestled with the decision. By the time Friday manifests externally, your spirit will recognize it as confirmation, not chaos. The noise will be outside, not within. Expect clarity to arrive without apology. Truth will surface. Motives will be revealed. Masks will fall without you pulling them off. You will see people more clearly, not cruelly. Discernment sharpens without hardening the heart when it is guided by obedience. This clarity is a gift, even when it costs you comfort. Some relationships will not survive this break not because of conflict, but because alignment has changed. Silence will replace conversation. Distance will replace familiarity. This is not abandonment, it is separation by design. God removes access before He removes affection, because He knows how deeply you love. Trust the process even when it hurts. Separation protects what promotion exposes. Do not try to rescue what God is dismantling. Compassion is holy, but interference is not. You are not responsible for maintaining systems God has already judged complete. Let endings end, let exits exit. Holding on longer will only delay your healing and confuse your assignment. What breaks on Friday was already broken in heaven. When you resist rescuing what God is dismantling, you protect your future from unnecessary wounds. Intervention can feel loving, but obedience sometimes looks like restraint. Allowing things to end honors divine wisdom over emotional impulse. Trust that what collapses now would have collapsed later, only with greater cost to your peace. Letting exits exit is not abandonment, it is alignment. Some doors close to prevent you from returning, not to punish you for leaving. Every ending creates spiritual clearance. In that open space, and clarity replaces confusion, and strength replaces strain. What remains after the breaking will be lighter, cleaner, and ready to grow. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness here does not mean inactivity. It means restraint. Do not rush to explain yourself. Do not rush to defend your decision. Do not rush to fix what others refuse to confront. Stillness is strategic when God is moving on your behalf. This is also where courage changes shape. Earlier, courage meant enduring. Now, courage means releasing. Courage means letting silence speak. Courage means choosing peace over being understood. Strength is no longer loud in this season, it is precise. You do not need to announce the break. The fruit will explain it later. You may feel an urge to retreat when things start breaking. Resist that instinct. Withdrawal can look like wisdom, but sometimes it is fear dressed politely. Stay present, stay anchored, stay responsive. You do not have to force outcomes, but you cannot disappear from your own life. God did not bring you this far to hide you now. As this unfolds, if this message is helping you recognize what season you are in, take a moment genuinely, not impulsively, to like it and share it with someone who is quietly struggling with similar pressure. And if you want to stay connected as this journey continues, consider subscribing, not for numbers, but for alignment. Community matters when transitions get intense. What breaks on Friday will not be replaced immediately. There may be a brief gap, a holy pause. Do not fill it with noise. Gaps are where direction settles. Absence creates clarity. Let the dust fall. Let your emotions catch up with your obedience. The next step will come, but it will come clean. Remember, these cycles do not end because you are perfect. They end because you are willing to obey, willing to release, willing to trust that God does not remove without intention. The breaking is not against you. It is for you. When Friday passes, you will look back and realize the fear you carried was heavier than the loss you experienced. Freedom always feels lighter in hindsight. What you gain will outweigh what you release, even if it takes time to measure it. Stand firm, stay still, let it break. There comes a moment when neutrality expires, not because God becomes harsh, but because clarity has arrived. Section 5 is about that line in the sand, the moment when silence is no longer wisdom and delay is no longer patience. This is where the story of Joshua rises from ancient pages and steps directly into your life. Joshua did not speak his famous words in comfort. He spoke them at the end of a long journey, surrounded by people who had seen miracles and still hesitated. They had crossed the Jordan. They had watched walls fall. They had tasted provision. Yet their hearts were divided. Familiar idols still whispered. Old habits still tugged. And Joshua understood something critical. Indecision is not harmless. It spreads. You are standing in a similar place. You have seen enough to know God is real. You have endured enough to know compromise is costly. Yet you are surrounded externally or internally by voices suggesting you can delay full obedience, that you can serve God halfway, that you can honor Him privately while blending publicly. Joshua confronted that lie head-on. He gathered the people not to inspire them, but to confront them. He laid out their history plainly. He reminded them where they came from, what God had done, and what was now required. He did not soften the truth to make it easier to swallow. He respected them enough to be clear, and then he spoke a sentence that still cuts through generations. Heaven speaks clearly through the words recorded in the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 15. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That sentence was not a slogan. It was a verdict. Joshua was not asking for consensus. He was announcing alignment. He understood that leadership does not wait for agreement. It models decision. He drew a boundary so firm that even disagreement had to respect it. And notice this, he did not say, "I hope my house will serve the Lord." He said, "As for me and my house," he took responsibility for the spiritual direction of what was entrusted to him. This is where the story turns personal for you. There is a house assigned to you. It may be your family. It may be your future. It may be your inner world, your thoughts, habits, values, and private decisions. And God is asking you the same question He placed before Israel. Who will you serve when no one forces you to choose? Joshua knew something else that matters deeply right now. Choices compound. What you tolerate today becomes culture tomorrow. What you excuse in private eventually shapes public outcomes. This is why delay is dangerous. Not because God is impatient, but because drift is subtle. You do not wake up one day far from God. You arrive there slowly by choosing comfort over conviction. You may feel the weight of this moment. The realization that obedience will cost you something real. Relationship, opportunities, approval. Joshua felt it too. Choosing the Lord meant rejecting gods that had history, familiarity, and social acceptance. It meant being misunderstood. It meant standing alone if necessary. But Joshua had learned through decades of warfare and wandering that victory without alignment always collapses later. This section is not about perfection. It is about decision. God is not asking you to predict every outcome. He is asking you to choose direction. When Joshua spoke, he did not know every challenge ahead, but he knew who would lead his house. That clarity became a shield. You may be tempted to wait until others choose first, to see how the crowd leans, to measure the risk. But Joshua did the opposite. He chose first so others would have something solid to react to. Leadership in God's kingdom often looks like quiet resolve, not loud persuasion. Ask yourself honestly, where have you been undecided? Not ignorant, undecided. Where have you delayed obedience because the cost felt inconvenient? That is your Joshua moment. That is where the line must be drawn. Because what you do not choose deliberately will eventually choose for you. There is also mercy here. God does not expose this moment to shame you, but to free you. Once a decision is made, inner conflict decreases, peace increases, focus sharpens, division drains energy, decision restores it. Many of your emotional battles will quiet down once direction is settled. Joshua's declaration did not instantly transform the nation, but it anchored his house. And that mattered. God always preserves a remnant through decisive obedience. You are not responsible for everyone's choice, but you are responsible for yours, and your choice will influence more than you realize. This is why this section carries a call to respond, not because God needs proof, but because words seal intent. If you feel this stirring, comment the number 314. This number is not random, it represents resolve, order, and intentional structure. Let it mark your decision to stop wavering and start aligning. Do not underestimate what happens when a chosen one decides. Heaven moves faster around clarity. Confusion loses its leverage. Fear loses its argument. When you say, "As for me," you reclaim authority that hesitation surrendered. Joshua's words still echo because they were lived, not just spoken. And now that echo has reached you, the question is not whether you hear it. The question is whether you will answer it with your life. Once the decision has been made, something irreversible begins to settle over your life. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is weighty. This is the mark of the set-apart ones. Not a symbol others can see immediately, but a distinction that changes how the spiritual realm responds to you. After this point, you no longer move through life unnoticed. You are recognized not by popularity, but by authority. Set apart does not mean superior, it means assigned. When God separates, He does so with intention. He removes you from certain paths not because they are evil in appearance, but because they are insufficient for your calling. You begin to notice that some opportunities no longer open, even when you qualify. Some doors close without explanation. This is not rejection. It is protection through restriction. The mark shows up first in your conscience. Things you once rationalized now disturb you. Compromises that others normalize feel heavy in your spirit. You are not becoming judgmental, you are becoming precise. Precision is required when influence increases. God sharpens your sensitivity because you will one day make decisions that affect more than just yourself. You also notice a change in how battles come. Earlier seasons were about survival. This season is about stewardship. The enemy no longer attacks randomly. He probes strategically. He tests your consistency, not your belief. He looks for fatigue, not ignorance. This is because ignorance is no longer your weakness. You know too much now. You have seen too much. You have survived too much. Being set apart means you cannot pretend not to see what you see. Accountability increases with clarity. This is why distractions feel more dangerous now. They cost more. A small drift produces a larger loss. Not because God is harsh, but because your position is higher. Falling from greater height always feels heavier. There is also an unexpected loneliness that accompanies this mark. Not isolation, but separation of depth. You can still love people, but fewer can walk with you at the same pace. Conversations skim the surface while your spirit is carrying weight. This loneliness is not a curse, it is a buffer. It protects you from leaking vision to those who cannot steward it. God often hides His set-apart ones in plain sight. You look ordinary, but your discernment is not. You function in daily life, but your spirit is alert. You are learning to live simultaneously in the natural and the spiritual, aware that every decision echoes beyond what is visible. This awareness matures you quickly. The mark also changes how favor operates. Blessings come with instruction attached. Provision comes with responsibility. Increase arrives with expectation. God is not simply adding to your life. He is entrusting you with weight. This is why impatience becomes dangerous. Rushing ahead now can damage what God is carefully building through you. You may notice that correction comes faster in this season. A check in your spirit, a loss of peace, a closed door. This is not punishment, it is proximity. The closer you walk with God, the quicker He adjusts your steps. Delayed correction belongs to distant relationships. Immediate correction belongs to intimate ones. There is a refining of motives happening as well. God strips away the need to be seen, to be validated, to be applauded. You begin to value obedience over outcome, faithfulness over recognition, quiet integrity over loud success. This is the heart posture of those trusted with lasting impact. The ancient words recorded in the book of Leviticus, chapter 20, verse 26. Still echo today, "You shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples that you should be mine." Notice the phrase that you should be mine. Separation is relational before it is functional. You are set apart because you belong. This belonging reshapes your identity. You no longer define yourself primarily by what you do, but by who you are aligned with. Success no longer flatters you the same way. Failure no longer destroys you the same way. Your stability comes from connection, not circumstance. That is strength few understand until they see it tested. The mark also brings restraint. You learn when not to speak, when not to act, when not to engage. Silence becomes a weapon. Waiting becomes strategy. Not every battle requires confrontation. Some require endurance. Others require withdrawal. Discernment teaches you the difference. You may grieve the simplicity of earlier seasons. When choices felt lighter, when mistakes felt cheaper, that grief is natural. But do not romanticize immaturity. What you gain now outweighs what you lose. Depth always costs innocence, but it produces wisdom. God is preparing you to stand when others scatter, to remain clear when others panic, to carry hope without hype. This is the calling of the set-apart ones, to be stable reference points in unstable times, to be light without noise, to be firm without force. You are learning that obedience is not restrictive, it is clarifying. Boundaries create freedom when they are aligned with purpose. You are not missing out. You are being spared. Many will envy the peace you carry without understanding the discipline that sustains it. This mark cannot be faked. It is revealed over time through consistency, through unseen choices, through private obedience, through restraint when no one would blame you for indulgence. Heaven records what earth ignores. As you move forward, men, understand this: being set apart does not mean you are finished. It means you are trusted. Trusted to carry more. Trusted to see clearly. Trusted to remain faithful when outcomes are uncertain. This is not the end of the journey. It is the confirmation that you are walking it correctly. After Friday, nothing is neutral anymore. That is the truth few are prepared to accept. You do not return to baseline. You do not simply go back to normal. When alignment locks in, everything becomes directional. Every choice now carries momentum. Every hesitation carries consequence. Neutral ground disappears because you are no longer wandering, you are positioned. This is where many feel exposed. Not because they are weak, but because the margins for self-deception shrink. You can no longer tell yourself stories to stay comfortable. What once felt optional now feels urgent. What once felt flexible now feels defined. Alignment sharpens reality. It removes fog, and clarity, while freeing, is also demanding. After Friday, you will notice that your tolerance for inner conflict drops dramatically. When thought and action disagree, peace leaves quickly. This is not punishment, it is guidance. God uses peace as a compass for those who have chosen alignment. When you drift, peace recedes. When you obey, it returns. Sensitivity increases because direction matters more now than ever before. You may also notice acceleration. Things move faster, both favor and consequence. Doors open more cleanly. Others close without warning. This is because hesitation is no longer built into the system. Heaven responds quickly to obedience at this level. Likewise, delay carries immediate friction. This is how God trains discernment under real conditions. There will be moments when you miss the illusion of neutrality, when you long for the days when choices felt less weighted. That nostalgia is understandable, but it is not an invitation to return. You cannot unsee what you now see. You cannot unknow what has been revealed. Responsibility has found you because trust has been extended. After Friday, alignment begins to produce visible fruit, not always instantly, but unmistakably. You will see patterns shift. You will notice that what drained you now avoids you. What confused you now clarifies quickly. What resisted you now either aligns or exits. Order replaces chaos without force. This is authority functioning quietly. There is also a refining of courage. Earlier, courage meant surviving pressure. Now courage means consistency, showing up aligned even when no one affirms it, continuing obedient practices when excitement fades, carrying discipline through ordinary days. This is where many fall back, but not you. You were trained for endurance, not novelty. Some people will misunderstand the changes in you. They may call it distance, arrogance, or withdrawal. Do not internalize that. Alignment often looks like withdrawal to those who benefited from your confusion. You are not pulling away. You are moving forward, and forward motion always creates space behind it. The aftermath of Friday also brings a new relationship with time. You stop rushing. You stop stalling. You move deliberately. You no longer chase urgency or hide in procrastination. You act when prompted and wait when instructed. This balance is rare and powerful. It makes your presence steady in unstable environments. You may feel a quiet authority growing in you, not dominance but gravity. People listen differently. Conversations shift when you speak. This is not charisma. It is coherence. When your inner world aligns, your words carry weight without effort. This is how leaders are recognized before titles are given. The ancient words recorded in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19. Still stand as a dividing line I have set before you, life and death. Blessing and cursing, therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. Notice the generational language. Alignment never ends with you. What you choose now echoes forward. After Friday, you are no longer choosing blindly. You are choosing with awareness. And that awareness protects not just you, but those connected to you. This is why neutrality is no longer allowed. Too much is at stake. Too much has been invested. There will be moments when obedience costs you speed, when doing it right takes longer than doing it fast. Choose right anyway. Speed impresses people. Precision sustains destiny. God is not impressed by how quickly you move. He is invested in how accurately you walk. As this unfolds, remember to stay connected, not isolated, not self-sufficient. Alignment thrives in healthy community. If this message has been helping you discern your season, take a moment genuinely to like and share it with someone who may be standing on the same edge without language for it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you remain connected as these teachings continue to unfold, not out of obligation, but out of shared direction. After Friday, You will not need constant reassurance. Confidence will come from coherence. When your actions match your beliefs, stability follows naturally. You stop asking, "Am I doing enough?" and start asking, "Am I aligned?" That single shift changes everything. You will also learn to release outcomes. Alignment frees you from obsessing over results. You do your part fully, then let God do what only He can. Anxiety fades when responsibility is clear. You are not responsible for controlling the future, only for stewarding the present faithfully. Nothing is neutral anymore, and that is a gift. It means your life is finally moving with intention. No more drifting, no more accidental season, no more prolonged confusion. You are walking awake. And once you walk awake, you never truly fall asleep again. Before you leave this moment, pause not to decide anything dramatic, not to promise anything out loud, but simply to notice what stayed with you. Not every word was meant to land, but something did. A sentence, a feeling, a quiet recognition that followed you through the message and refused to let go. That is the part worth keeping. This ending is not a conclusion, it is an opening. You are not being pushed toward agreement or performance. You are being invited into reflection. If this message helped you name what you have been sensing but could not explain, you are free to share it with someone who might need the same clarity. Sometimes sharing is not about influence, it is about companionship, letting someone know they are not alone in what they are carrying. And if sharing feels unnecessary, that is fine too. Not every seed is meant to be scattered immediately. Some are meant to be held, turned over in the heart, revisited later when timing catches up with understanding. You do not owe this message anything. Take only what resonates, then release the rest without guilt. What matters most is not what you do next publicly, but what shifts quietly inside you afterward. Awareness changes how you walk. Even a small adjustment in posture can alter an entire journey. If something here helped you see yourself, your season, or your direction more clearly, let that clarity guide you gently, without pressure. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to question. You are allowed to grow without announcing it. Insight does not demand urgency. It invites honesty. So leave this space however you need to. Share it if it feels right. Sit with it if it doesn't. Carry forward whatever spoke to you, even if you cannot yet explain why. Sometimes the most important moments do not end with certainty, but with attention.